The sun was setting over the cornfields when John Miller noticed something strange in the sky. A bright light moved too fast to be a plane, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. John watched as the object crashed about a mile from his farmhouse, sending a plume of dirt and debris into the air. "Kate," John called to his daughter, "get the truck ready." 22-year-old Kate Miller grabbed the keys and a first aid kit. Growing up in rural Nebraska had taught her to be prepared for anything. Farm accidents happened, and sometimes you needed to act fast to save a life. "What do you think it is, Dad?" she asked as they bounced down the dirt road toward the crash site. "Don't know," John replied, his eyes fixed on the rising smoke, "but someone might need help." They weren't prepared for what they found. The plane was unlike anything they had ever seen. A shimmering metal craft about the size of a school bus, with no wings and strange markings along its sides. Part of it was on fire, and strange sounds came from inside. "There's someone in there," Kate said, pointing to movement behind a cracked window-like panel. Without hesitation, John grabbed the fire extinguisher from his truck and ran toward the craft. The door, or what seemed like a door, was partly open, bent from the impact. Inside, 3 beings struggled to free themselves from tangled equipment. They weren't human. Each had 4 eyes, skin that seemed almost see-through, and long, thin limbs. They made clicking sounds that might have been their language. Most people would have run away. Some might have called the military or the police. But John Miller had never left anyone in trouble, human or not. "Kate, help me get them out," he shouted, climbing into the strange craft. The smoke was getting thicker. One of the aliens was trapped under a fallen piece of equipment. John lifted it. It was surprisingly light, while Kate helped the being crawl out. The other 2 aliens seemed injured, but could move with help. Kate spoke softly to them, the way she would to scared animals. "It's okay. We're here to help. Come on." The aliens seemed to understand her tone, if not her words. They followed her out of the ship while John checked for others. Finding no one else, he exited just before flames engulfed the craft. Back at the farmhouse, Kate cleaned and bandaged the aliens' wounds as best she could. Their blood was purple, and their skin felt cool to the touch. One of them had a device that started to make different sounds when Kate gave them water. "I think it's trying to learn our language," John said, watching the device flash with lights. By morning, the device made rough English sounds. The aliens could say simple words like thank and help. They learned the aliens were called Centauri. They were scientists studying Earth from far away. Their ship had a problem, and they had to land quickly. They had not meant to meet humans yet. "Dangerous world," one Centauri said, pointing outside. "You, strong people." John laughed. "Nebraska. Dangerous. Sure, we get some tornadoes, but it's mostly peaceful." The Centauri shook its head. "All Earth. Heavy gravity. Strong weather. Many dangers. We call Deathworld. You live here. Very strong." Kate and John exchanged looks. They had never thought of Earth as particularly dangerous. It was just home. 3 days later, more ships came. These landed carefully in the field behind the Miller farm. Tall, important-looking aliens emerged, led by one with special markings on its clothes. "I am Ambassador Zilvax of the Galactic Council," it said through a translator device. "We have come for our scientists." The ambassador seemed shocked when John and Kate explained how they had saved the Centauri crew. "You rescued them, without knowing what they were?" Zilvax asked. "Of course," Kate said simply. "They needed help." Zilvax stared at them for a long moment. "Perhaps we have misjudged humanity," he said finally. "We thought beings from such a harsh world would be violent and fearful of strangers. Yet you show compassion to those completely unlike yourselves." As the ambassador prepared to leave with the scientists, he turned to John and Kate once more. "This meeting was not planned, but it may be the most important first contact in galactic history. Your actions have opened a door between our worlds. The galaxy will soon know of Earth's Deathworlders, and their unexpected kindness. John put his arm around Kate's shoulders as they watched the ships rise silently into the evening sky. "Well," he said with a smile, "I guess we're not alone after all." 6 months after the Millers met the crashed aliens in Nebraska, Earth received a formal invitation to join the Galactic Coalition. World leaders chose Alan Daniels, a calm and friendly diplomat, and Dr. Susan Wright, a smart scientist, to represent humans among the stars. Alan and Susan arrived on the massive space station called Unity Hub, where representatives from over 200 alien species worked together. Most aliens watched the humans with curious eyes and whispered to each other. Humans were new and different. "They look so fragile," Susan whispered to Alan as they followed Ambassador Zilvax through the grand hallways. "But they seem afraid of us." Alan nodded. "Remember what the briefing said. Most of these species evolved on peaceful planets. No big predators, mild weather, low gravity." "Unlike Earth," Susan said with a small smile. Their first meeting with the Interspecies Relations Committee did not go well. Many alien representatives did not want humans involved in galaxy matters. "These creatures come from a Class 9 death world," said Trelcor, a thin alien with light blue skin. "Their bodies are dense with muscle and heavy bones. They can survive injuries that would kill most of us. And their history is full of war," added another alien. "How can we trust them?" Alan stood calmly. "Yes, Earth has had wars. But we've also built peace. We've learned from our mistakes. And the strength you fear has helped us survive on our world, just as your unique traits helped you on yours." Some aliens seemed willing to listen, but many remained unsure. Humans would need to prove themselves. That chance came sooner than expected. During a tour of Unity Hub's lower levels, Alan and Susan's group entered a large meeting room just as the station shook violently. Emergency lights flashed red. "Structural failure in Section 12, announced a voice over speakers. "Evacuate immediately." Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the main exit. 12 alien delegates were trapped with Alan and Susan. Some aliens froze in fear, while others panicked. "Everyone stay calm," Alan said in a firm voice. "Susan, help me with this." Without waiting, Alan moved to a fallen metal beam blocking their path. He lifted it, something that would have been impossible for most aliens due to their lighter bone structure and weaker muscles. Susan quickly helped an injured alien, using her scarf as a bandage. "We need to make a path through here," Alan said, moving more debris. "The emergency exit is just beyond this wall." The aliens watched in silence as the two humans worked together. Susan found materials to make a simple lever system, moving heavier pieces that even Alan couldn't lift alone. Alan carried injured aliens one by one to safer areas. Neither human complained about the work or showed signs of giving up. After 2 hours of hard work, Alan created a path to the emergency exit. The aliens followed him through the narrow opening, with Susan helping each one. Once everyone was safe, medical teams arrived. As they treated the injured aliens, Grand Minister Kelforan, one of the highest-ranking officials in the coalition, approached Alan and Susan. "I have lived for 300 years," the old alien said slowly. "I have seen many species join our coalition, but I have never seen anything like what you two did today." "Anyone would have helped," Susan said simply. Kelforan shook his head, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "No. Most species would have waited for rescue teams. Your physical abilities are remarkable, yes, but it was your immediate decision to act that truly surprised us. You didn't hesitate." Ellen shrugged. "On Earth, we have a saying. When there's trouble, look for the helpers. We're just doing what humans do." Later that evening, Kelforan spoke privately with Ambassador Zilvax. "They don't even realize how extraordinary they are," the Grand Minister said softly. "On their world, such strength and quick thinking is common. They expect it of themselves. And you now support their membership?" Zilvax asked. Kelforan looked out at the stars through a large window. "I do more than support it. I believe these Deathworlders might be exactly what our galaxy needs. A fresh perspective. A different kind of strength. He turned to his friend. And perhaps when greater dangers come, they will be our greatest allies. As news of the humans' actions spread through Unity Hub, attitudes began to change. Sometimes the most valuable allies come from the most unexpected places. 1 year after Earth joined the Galactic Coalition, strange reports began to come in from the outer edges of known space. Colony planets suddenly went silent. Ships disappeared. When the Coalition sent teams to investigate, they never returned. At first, many alien leaders wanted to ignore the problem. The outer rim was far away from their core worlds. But the danger grew closer each day. Finally, a damaged scout ship returned with terrible news and frightening videos. The threat had a name, the Vesperi. They were not like normal aliens. The Vesperi were a hive mind, many bodies connected to one thinking brain. They looked like large insects with sharp claws and hard outer shells. They ate anything living to grow their numbers, and they learned quickly from every battle. The Coalition's fancy weapons didn't work for long. The Vesperi would adapt after just a few attacks, making the weapons useless. Regular Coalition soldiers, used to fighting by strict rules, couldn't keep up with how fast the Vesperi changed their battle plans. George Peterson didn't care about any of that. He was just a human miner, visiting the colony planet New Horizon with his coworker Lisa Ortiz to check out some valuable mineral deposits. They were in the middle of testing soil samples when the alarm sirens started. "What's happening?" George asked a running alien colonist. "Vesperi attack. Everyone to the evacuation ships." The alien shouted, not stopping. George and Lisa watched as people rushed to the spaceport. Parents carried children. Others helped the old and sick. But the crowd was too big and the ships too few. "They need more time," Lisa said, looking at the scared faces around them. George nodded. He pointed to the mining equipment they had brought. "We have explosives meant for breaking rocks, and I bet those bug things aren't any tougher than granite." Lisa understood immediately. "We slow them down while others escape." They grabbed their equipment and ran to the edge of the colony where the first Vesperi drones were breaking through the fence. George had been a demolition expert in construction before becoming a miner. He quickly set charges at key points along the path the Vesperi would need to take. "Ready?" he asked Lisa, who held the detonator. She nodded, her face serious. "Ready." The first explosion threw dozens of Vesperi into the air. The second collapsed a narrow pass between two hills. For a moment, the Vesperi attack stopped as the hive mind tried to understand this new defense. "They're thinking," Lisa said, "planning a new way in." "Then we'll need to keep changing our tricks," George replied. He looked at their remaining equipment. "Let's set some traps they won't expect." For 3 days and nights, the two humans fought a battle of wits against the ever-adapting Vesperi. They used mining explosives, makeshift flamethrowers built from fuel lines, and even sound devices that confused the Vesperi's communication system. Every time the Vesperi thought they understood the human defenses, George and Lisa changed tactics. They slept in short shifts, ate energy bars, and drank water from a nearby stream. Their clothes became torn and dirty. They suffered cuts and burns, but they never stopped fighting. On the third day, as the last evacuation ship prepared to leave, a coalition officer found them setting new traps. "You two need to get on that ship," the officer said. "You've done enough." George wiped sweat from his forehead. "Are all the colonists safe?" "Yes, over 4,000 evacuated because of you two. We didn't think anyone could hold back the Vesperi for more than a few hours." Lisa smiled tiredly. "We're just stubborn, I guess." That night, safe on the rescue ship, George and Lisa learned that someone had recorded their fight against the Vesperi. The video was spreading across Coalition space faster than any news had before. In the video, two small humans stood against a wave of nightmare creatures. They moved quickly, fought creatively, and never gave up even when exhausted and hurt. They showed no fear, only determination. Across thousands of worlds, aliens watched the video in silence. Then they asked the same question: how many more humans are there? For the first time since the Vesperi appeared, the people of the Coalition felt something new in their hearts. They felt hope. The video of George and Lisa fighting the Vesperi changed everything. Coalition military leaders watched it over and over again. They saw two humans with simple mining tools hold back an enemy that their best soldiers couldn't stop. "We need more humans," said General Kravak of the Coalition Defense Force. Many members of the Galactic Council disagreed. "These Deathworlders are too dangerous," they argued. "Too unpredictable. We cannot trust them with our military." But the Vesperi were getting closer to important Coalition worlds. Fear won over pride. The Council approved a new plan: create special fighting teams made up only of human volunteers. Commander Frank Rivera was chosen to lead this project. Frank had been a police officer on Earth before joining the Coalition forces as a trainer. He was known for his calm mind and fair treatment of all species. "I need the best Earth has to offer," Frank told his alien supervisors. "Not just soldiers, but people who know how to solve problems in tough situations." Frank traveled back to Earth and began to select his team. He chose police officers who had worked in dangerous cities, mountain climbers who knew how to survive in harsh weather, firefighters who ran into burning buildings when others ran out, doctors who had worked in disaster zones, even chefs and engineers who could think quickly and use what they had. Some aliens laughed at his choices. "Where are the warriors?" they asked. "The killing machines." Frank just smiled. "Humans aren't killing machines. We're survivors. And that's what you need right now." The first Human Response Team, HRT, had 50 members. They trained for 3 weeks, learning about Vesperi behavior and Coalition technology. Then they were sent to Proxima Beta, a farming colony that had sent out a distress signal. The regular Coalition forces were already there, but they were losing ground. The Vesperi had adapted to their weapons and tactics. The alien soldiers fought bravely, but could not change their plans quickly enough when something didn't work. Frank's team arrived just as the main defense line was about to break. The Vesperi had surrounded the Coalition base on 3 sides. "Standard tactics won't work," Frank told his team. "So we won't use standard tactics." Instead of attacking from the front, the humans broke into small groups. They used the colony's water pipes to move behind Vesperi lines. They set traps using farm equipment and local plants that gave off strong smells that confused the Vesperi senses. They created new weapons by combining parts from broken Coalition guns with simple tools. Most importantly, they kept changing their methods. When the Vesperi adapted to one trick, the humans already had 3 new ones ready. Laura Ramirez, who had been a chef on Earth, found that mixing certain local spices created a smoke that the Vesperi couldn't see through. Ben Wilson, formerly a sound engineer, discovered frequencies that disrupted the hive mind's communication. Each human added their unique skills to the fight. After 2 days of constant battle, the Vesperi retreated. It was their first defeat since they had entered Coalition space. Admiral Exen Tariq watched the battle from his command ship. He had lived for over 150 years and fought in many wars, but he had never seen anything like these humans. "It's not just that they're physically strong," he told his officers. "Many species have strength, but these humans—" He paused, searching for the right words. "They don't just follow plans. They create new ones on the spot. Where we see patterns and follow rules, they see possibilities. They turn weaknesses into strengths. They use the environment, whatever is available, in ways we would never think of." He watched as the tired humans helped wounded Coalition soldiers onto medical ships. "It's beautiful and terrifying all at once," the Admiral said softly. "And I think it might save us all." News of the victory spread quickly through Coalition space. More colonies asked for human response teams. More humans volunteered to join. Operation Earthborn had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the war against the Vesperi. While human response teams fought the Vesperi across coalition space, scientists worked hard to find a permanent solution to the hive mind threat. The top research station, Orbital Lab 7, became home to the brightest minds from 30 different species. Dr. Olivia Chen joined the research team 3 months into the war. She was a xenobiologist from Earth who studied how different life forms communicated. When she arrived at the lab, she noticed something strange about how the alien scientists approached the problem. "You're all trying to find better ways to kill the Vesperi," she said during her first meeting. "Has anyone tried to talk to them instead?" The room went silent. The alien scientists stared at Olivia as if she had suggested they should eat rocks. "Talk to them?" asked Chief Scientist Mokhtari, his tentacles twitching with emotion. "They are a consuming plague. They destroy everything in their path." Olivia nodded calmly. "Yes, they consume worlds. But why? Every living thing wants to survive. Even a hive mind must have basic needs and drives. If we can understand those needs, maybe we can find a solution where neither side has to be destroyed." Most of the aliens thought her idea was foolish or dangerous. But Dr. Jalvek, an elderly scientist who had studied rare life forms for over 200 years, supported her. "The human has a point," Jalvek said. "In all our research, we have focused on the Vesperi as an enemy to defeat. We have not truly tried to understand them." With Jalvek's support, Olivia formed a small team of human linguists and psychologists. They began studying all available data on Vesperi behavior. They watched recordings of battles, examined captured drone bodies, and analyzed the chemical signals the hive mind used to control its parts. After weeks of work, they noticed something interesting. The Vesperi responded differently to certain sound patterns. When coalition ships used particular frequencies for communication, nearby Vesperi drones would pause or change direction briefly. Olivia's team created a device that produced these sounds in patterns that mimicked music. They tested it during a small battle on the moon of Corvus 9. When they played the sounds, the Vesperi attack slowed. Some drones even stopped moving completely. "They're listening," Olivia told the council during an emergency meeting. "We believe the Vesperi experience reality very differently than we do. They may not understand that other beings are alive in the way they are. To them, consuming a planet might be like us picking fruit from a tree." The council was skeptical, but they allowed Olivia to try her communication approach on a larger scale. A team of humans would approach a small Vesperi node, a control center that directed nearby drones, and attempt to establish contact using the sound patterns. The mission was dangerous. If Olivia was wrong, the team would be killed. She decided to lead the mission herself, along with linguist Ryan Powell and psychologist Dina Patel. Their ship landed on a small moon where a Vesperi node had recently formed. As they approached on foot, Vesperi drones surrounded them, but did not attack. The sound device was working. At the node, a large pulsing structure made of organic material, Olivia's team set up more complex sound equipment. They played patterns based on mathematical sequences, then simple images translated into sounds. After hours of trying different approaches, the node began to produce its own sounds, copying their patterns but adding new elements. "It's working," whispered Ryan. "They're trying to answer us." Over the next 3 days, they developed a basic form of communication. The Vesperi shared images and concepts through sounds and chemical signals that the human equipment could detect and translate. What they learned was shocking. The Vesperi had no concept of individual death or harm. They experienced existence as one continuous being spread across many bodies. They had been consuming worlds because they didn't understand that other beings experienced life differently, that being eaten meant the end of existence for other species. When the human team returned to coalition space, they brought this new understanding with them. The council representatives watched in disbelief as recordings showed humans and Vesperi exchanging information peacefully. Only creatures from a death world could do this, Ambassador Zilvax said with wonder in his voice. Only beings who understand death so intimately could teach its meaning to a species that has never known it. These humans understand survival in ways we never could. Dr. Olivia Chen's breakthrough in communicating with the Vesperi changed the war. Many Vesperi nodes stopped fighting once they understood that they were ending the existence of other thinking beings. Peace seemed possible for the first time. But not all Vesperi accepted this new understanding. The largest hive cluster, led by an ancient queen node, rejected all attempts at communication. This group continued to consume worlds and grow stronger. Coalition intelligence discovered terrible news. The queen node was moving toward the core worlds, the heart of coalition space, where trillions of beings lived on thousands of planets. If the queen reached these densely populated systems, billions would die. The coalition gathered its largest fleet ever, over 10,000 ships from every member species. But previous battles had shown that conventional weapons had little effect on queen nodes. The Vesperi would sacrifice countless drones to protect their queen, and her thick outer shell could withstand almost any attack. Scientists developed a special nanovirus that could stop the queen by shutting down her neural network. But there was one huge problem. The virus had to be delivered directly to the center of the queen node, where her main brain was located. No remote delivery system could get past the queen's defenses. It was a suicide mission. Whoever took the virus to the queen would never return. The coalition leaders called an emergency meeting. "We need volunteers," said Admiral Xenteric. "The team must reach the neural center and activate the nanovirus manually." No one spoke. The room was silent as representatives from hundreds of species looked at the floor or their hands. Death was not something most coalition species faced willingly. Their evolutionary history on peaceful worlds had not prepared them for such sacrifice. Then, a voice broke the silence. "I volunteer." Nathan Harris, a human pilot from the HRT program, stood up. He had dark skin and calm eyes that had seen many battles. "I volunteer as well," said Maria Diaz, a human engineer who had helped build the nanovirus delivery system. "And I," added Paul Washington, a science officer who knew the Queen's biology better than anyone. One by one, every human in the room stood up. Soon, 78 humans had volunteered for a mission that meant certain death. Admiral Xenteric looked at them with all four of his eyes wide open. "We only need 3, he said softly. "Then choose the best 3 for the job," replied Nathan. "But know that any of us would go." The final team consisted of Nathan as pilot, Maria as engineer, and Paul as science officer. Their mission: take a small, fast ship through the Vesperi defenses, reach the Queen's neural center, and deploy the nanovirus. The day before the mission, a young Centauri diplomat approached Nathan in the ship bay, where he was checking his vessel one last time. "Why aren't you afraid?" the diplomat asked. "How can you joke and smile when tomorrow you will die?" Nathan thought for a moment before answering. "I am afraid," he said honestly. "But on Earth, we learn early that death comes to everyone eventually. We can't escape it. The only choice we have is what we do with the time we have, and what we're willing to die for." He looked at the stars through the bay window. "Saving trillions of lives seems worth it to me." The Centauri shook his head in wonder. No species in the coalition thinks this way. "When you grow up on a death world," Nathan said with a small smile, "you learn to make peace with mortality. It's the first step to truly living." The next day, coalition representatives gathered in the command center to watch the mission via remote feed. The small human ship slipped between massive Vesperi warships, taking damage but pressing forward. Nathan's piloting skills, developed in Earth's changing weather and challenging terrain, kept them moving toward the center of the Vesperi fleet where the Queen node waited. When hit by Vesperi weapons, Maria rerouted systems and made repairs that coalition engineers had deemed impossible under combat conditions. When they encountered unfamiliar Vesperi biological defenses, Paul found weaknesses no one else had noticed. Against all odds, they reached the massive Queen Node. Their ship was badly damaged, but they managed to find an opening in its organic hull. As they navigated into the heart of the structure, billions of beings across Coalition space watched and held their breath. The final transmission showed the three humans in the neural center of the Queen Node. They were surrounded by pulsing organic matter and strange, glowing structures. Their ship would never fly again. There was no way out. The camera showed their faces as they prepared to release the nanovirus. They were smiling at each other, their eyes clear and determined. "For Earth, and for everyone," Maria said. They triggered the deployment sequence together. The screen went dark. 3 years after the defeat of the Queen Node, representatives from every species in the Coalition gathered on Earth. They came to honor the humans who had saved the galaxy, especially Nathan Harris, Maria Diaz, and Paul Washington, who had given their lives to stop the Vesperi Queen. The ceremony took place in Geneva, Switzerland, in a large green park. The weather was perfect, sunny with a gentle breeze. To the alien visitors who evolved on calmer worlds, even Earth's pleasant days felt strong and intense. At the center of the park stood a new monument, 3 human figures cast in shining metal, standing back to back. Around them, smaller figures represented the many other humans who had died fighting the Vesperi across Coalition space. The names of every human who had fallen were carved into the base. Lisa Ortiz and George Peterson, the miners who had first held back the Vesperi at New Horizon, stood near the front of the crowd. They had become symbols of human courage, but they still felt like regular people who had simply done what needed to be done. "I never thought we'd be standing here when we were setting those explosives," George whispered to Lisa. "Nathan, Maria, and Paul are the real heroes," Lisa replied softly. But the monument was only part of the changes that had come after the war. Throughout Coalition space, species that had once looked down on humans as primitive Deathworlders now sent their children to study at Earth universities. They wanted to learn human thinking, the creativity and adaptability that had saved them all. Coalition military forces had completely changed how they trained soldiers. They now practiced changing tactics quickly and using available resources in new ways, lessons learned from watching human fighters. Most importantly, Dr. Olivia Chen's work communicating with the Vesperi had opened new possibilities for understanding between different species. The remaining Vesperi collectives had established peaceful colonies in empty star systems. They no longer consumed inhabited worlds now that they understood the concept of individual life and death. Human ambassadors worked with the Vesperi, helping 2 very different types of minds find common ground. Grand Minister Kelforin, now in his final years of life, rose to speak at the ceremony. His voice was translated through devices that had become common throughout Coalition space. 3 years ago, I called Earth a death world, he began, his voice strong despite his age. I was wrong. This is not a world of death, but a world of life, intense, challenging life that forged the most remarkable beings our galaxy has ever known. He looked around at the human and alien faces watching him. You taught us that true strength comes not just from avoiding hardship, but from facing it head-on. You showed us that adaptation is not merely something that happens over millions of years, but a choice made every day by thinking beings. And most importantly, you demonstrated that empathy can extend even to those most different from ourselves. Kelforin gestured to a group of Vesperi representatives standing peacefully among the crowd, something that would have been unthinkable before humans joined the Coalition. The official records now call this the Deathworlder War, he continued. This name honors the crucial role humans played in our survival. But I prefer to think of it as the beginning of a new understanding, a time when the galaxy learned that our differences can be our greatest strength when we stand together. As the ceremony ended, the various species mingled together. Alien children played games with human children on the grass. Scientists from a dozen worlds discussed new research with Earth colleagues. Coalition military officers talked with human response team members about joint training programs. Lisa watched it all with a smile. "We're not alone anymore," she said to George. Not just humans, but any of us. Across the galaxy, beings of all kinds spoke of humans with respect and wonder. They had been speechless in the face of human courage, resilience, and compassion. But now they found their voices again, and what they spoke of most was gratitude, and hope for a future shaped by the lessons humanity had taught them. The Deathworlders had not just saved the galaxy. They had made it better.